The girl who knocked it started with a knock. One single knock. Not frantic, not forceful, just deliberate. I was home alone that night. My parents had gone out of town for a family emergency. Some cousin I never met had been in an accident. They left in a rush that afternoon, promising they'd be back by morning. So I stayed behind. Just me, a frozen pizza, and the quiet hum of a house that suddenly felt too big. It was one of those rains that never lets up, tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. Everything outside was a haze, streetlights blurred behind curtains of water. The sky was an oil painting of black and deep gray. Even the trees across the road looked like dark figures, hunched and swaying. I remember the way the air felt, heavy, still, like the kind of silence you only notice when you're trying not to listen for something. I was sitting in the living room, half watching a rerun on TV, half scrolling my phone, when I heard it. That knock, not the doorbell. Just a single knock on the wood, a flat-knuckled tap. It was almost polite, like someone didn't want to intrude, but had to. I froze. Everything inside me went still. I waited to hear it again. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe I imagined it. And then, it came again, louder this time. I got up. My legs moved before I made the decision. I don't know why, but I didn't turn on the porch light. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. At first, I didn't see anyone. But then, she stepped into view. A girl, maybe 16, drenched from head to toe. Her clothes clung to her. No jacket, no umbrella. Her hair was soaked, stuck to her face in dripping strands. And her eyes, they were wide, not with fear, not even with desperation, but with focus, like she was trying to see inside me. I opened the door just a crack, enough to speak. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask for help. She just said, "Are you alone?" Her voice was soft, not threatening, but the way she said it, the way her eyes didn't blink, it sent something cold down my spine. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say, but I remember nodding. Just a little, almost against my will. She tilted her head, like she was studying me. Her mouth curved upward in a smile, but it was the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the kind you practice in a mirror. And then, she turned and walked away. No explanation, no thank you, just stepped into the rain and vanished into the fog like she had never been there. I closed the door, locked it, double-locked it. I stood there for a minute, just listening. The silence in the house was louder now. It pressed in on me. I told myself maybe she was a new neighbor. Maybe she was lost. Maybe she needed help and didn't know how to ask. But that question, "Are you alone?" It kept replaying in my head. An hour passed, maybe more. Then I heard it, from upstairs. Footsteps, faint at first. Just the slow creak of weight, shifting on old floorboards. I froze. My parents' bedroom was upstairs, so was mine. I live in a 2-story house, and when you're alone, every sound becomes sharper, louder, more personal. I muted the TV, held my breath. Another footstep, then another. Slow. Measured. Someone was upstairs. And I hadn't heard the door open. No window had shattered. No alarm had gone off. The footsteps moved, not quickly, just pacing, room to room, like someone was exploring or searching. I grabbed my phone. I wanted to call the police, but my hands were shaking. I don't even remember unlocking it properly. Then the sound stopped. Just silence. I tiptoed toward the stairs. Every creak in the floor beneath me felt like thunder. And then, from the top of the staircase, I saw something. Just for a second. The silhouette of someone standing in the hallway, facing me, unmoving. 2 people, 2 men, both in dark clothes, both still as statues. One of them turned his head slightly, as if listening. I didn't scream. I don't know why. My body just acted. I ran. I bolted for the front door, fumbled with the lock. My fingers wouldn't cooperate. I could hear footsteps now. Thudding, fast, coming down the stairs. Heavy shoes pounding hardwood. I got the door open, threw myself out into the storm. The rain was blinding, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back, I just ran. When the police arrived, the house was empty, but the upstairs bedrooms had been ransacked. Drawers pulled open. Closets disturbed. Some of our valuables were gone. No sign of the intruders. No fingerprints. No broken entry. But there was something strange the officer noticed. Something I hadn't. A footprint. In the hallway upstairs. A small one. Barefoot. Too small for a grown man. The officer thought maybe it belonged to me. But I hadn't been upstairs all night. And I never walk around barefoot. There was something else. The front doormat. The one I always checked when the mail came. It was flipped over. Underneath it was a house key. One I didn't recognize. The girl never came back. But sometimes, when it rains, I still check the door. Not because I think she'll return, but because sometimes I hear a knock, just one. And every time I open it, no one's there. But the porch is always wet. And the doormat is always moved. The man in the mirror. You ever catch yourself staring into a mirror too long? Not just a glance while brushing your teeth. I mean really staring. Long enough for your own eyes to stop looking familiar. Long enough to wonder, what if the reflection moved first? I didn't always think like this. I used to be normal. I had a job, friends, I was healthy, mentally and physically. I laughed, I dated, I made fun of ghost stories on Reddit. But all of that ended the day I moved into that apartment. It was cheap, and I should have known why. 1 bedroom, 6th floor, old building downtown. It had that old paint smell, cracked tiles, windows that didn't quite close all the way. But it was mine. My first solo place. A new start. It came with some furniture, most of it garbage. But there was one thing I liked. A tall, antique mirror in the bedroom. Old frame, heavy, carved edges. It stood on its own. No bolts, no wall mounting. Just leaned at a slight angle. I remember the first time I looked into it. My reflection felt sharp. Too clear, almost too detailed. It didn't just show me, it showed intent. But I ignored that feeling. We always do, don't we? We call it superstition, overthinking. I told myself I was being dramatic. It was just a mirror. Week 1. The first few days, fine. I was settling in. The mirror was just part of the room. But by day 5, I started to notice little things. Like how my reflection would seem a fraction of a second slower than me. Just a flicker. I'd raise my hand, and I swore. There was a delay. I tested it, again and again, moving fast, then slow, and sometimes, just sometimes, it felt like I was being studied from the other side. But when I tried to film it with my phone, nothing. It always looked normal. That's when the dreams started. It always began the same way. I'd be asleep in bed, and in the dream I'd wake up, still lying there. But everything would be reversed. Like the room had flipped. The mirror was still there, across from the bed. But instead of reflecting me, it was showing someone standing over me. A figure, not moving, just watching. And I'd try to scream or move, but my body wouldn't listen. My limbs were heavy, my mouth frozen open in silence. Then I'd wake up, for real this time, heart pounding, cold sweat, still staring at the mirror, empty again. It happened night after night, until one time, I woke up with the mirror facing me directly. Even though I had moved it the night before, that's when I knew something was wrong. Descent. I tried to stop looking into it. I covered it with a sheet, turned it toward the wall. Didn't matter. One morning I woke up, and it was uncovered again. Another morning it was back in its original spot. Once, I came home from work and found footprints on the hardwood floor. leading to the mirror. But only one set. Not mine. They stopped right in front of the glass, like someone had stepped out or stepped in. I called a friend, asked if they had a spare room. They laughed, said I was being paranoid. I didn't know how to explain it. How do you explain that you're scared of your own reflection? Or the incident. It all came to a head one night. I'd stayed up too late again, scrolling, trying not to sleep. The power went out. Whole building plunged into darkness. Only light I had was my phone. I turned on the flashlight, walked to the fuse box. That's when I noticed it. In the corner of my eye, the mirror, uncovered, facing the bedroom door. I turned my flashlight toward it, and what I saw wasn't me. Same clothes, same posture. But the face wasn't mine. It was off. Like someone had made a mold of me, but didn't get the details right. The smile was too wide. The eyes were all wrong. Black, like they'd been scooped out and filled with ink, and it was smiling. It was smiling at me. I screamed and threw the flashlight. It clattered to the floor, rolled under the bed, plunging the room into near darkness, and still, I could feel it smiling. I backed out, didn't even grab my shoes. I ran into the hallway, down the stairwell, all the way to the street. Didn't sleep that night, just walked around until sunrise. The exit. I moved out that weekend, told the landlord the mirror had been stolen. He just nodded, didn't ask questions, almost like he'd heard it before. A month passed. I started sleeping again, slowly, but last week, something happened. I got a package, no return address, just my name. Inside was a photograph, old, yellowed, like it had been taken with a film camera decades ago. It was a shot of a room, an apartment bedroom, mine, but in the picture, the mirror was empty, no reflection, no light, just black glass, and in the corner of the photo, barely visible, was a shape, thin, still, smiling, just standing outside the frame. Soft mirror creak, wind passing through glass, a faint whisper, "Come back." I haven't looked in a mirror since. I use my phone to brush my hair. I shave in the dark. Because now, when I pass any reflective surface, on a window, a screen, a piece of polished metal, I always check. And sometimes, just sometimes, I catch a glimpse of him, still watching, still smiling, waiting for me to look long enough for him to step back through. They sang in the trees. We wanted quiet. That's what we told ourselves when we planned the trip. Me, Chris, and Elena. 3 friends who hadn't seen each other since college, trying to reconnect, trying to escape the burnout of our lives. So we booked a cabin, off-grid, miles from the nearest town. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. Just nature, clean air, tall trees, and the sound of nothing. That's what we thought we'd find. We didn't know that the woods had their own way of listening, and that sometimes they sing back. The first day was uneventful. The drive was long, winding through back roads that looked like they hadn't seen a car in months. The GPS lost signal about an hour from the cabin. From there, we relied on printed directions, something Chris called a nostalgic survival challenge. When we arrived, the place looked still. That's the only way I can describe it. The trees didn't move, even though the air felt like it should have carried a breeze. The leaves were thick above us, the sky barely visible through the canopy. The cabin itself was small. 1 floor, a loft above, porch out front. Wood creaked underfoot. Dust hung in the air like it had been waiting. Inside, everything looked normal. Sparse furniture, faded rugs, a wood-burning stove, no TV, no clocks, just a battery-powered lantern on each nightstand, and a rusted axe wedged into a chopping block outside. We joked about ghosts, about cannibals, about all the stupid things people say in horror movies right before it starts. But that first night, something did start. And it started with sound. We stayed up late by the fire, roasting marshmallows, telling stories, laughing the way old friends do when the world feels far away. At some point, I noticed the silence. Not the kind that creeps in, the kind that slams down. The wind had stopped. The trees had stopped swaying. Even the insects had gone quiet. No chirping, no rustling, just an unnatural, crushing hush. Then we heard it. Distant, rhythmic. A low humming sound, almost melodic, like someone chanting. It rose and fell, steady as breathing. At first we thought it was an animal, then maybe another camper, though we hadn't seen a soul on the drive in. But there was something wrong about it. It was too in sync, too deliberate. And it wasn't coming from one direction. It was coming from all around us. The trees. Chris stood up first, trying to pinpoint the source. He called out, "Hello?" Voice wavering. No answer. The chanting didn't stop. If anything, it got closer. That's when Elena said something I'll never forget. "It's not in the forest, it's from it." We went back inside, locked the door, shut the windows. The sound followed. We couldn't tell how close it was anymore. It seemed to fold in on itself, surrounding the cabin like fog, smothering everything else. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. No fade out, no steps retreating, just gone. We looked at each other, said nothing. No one wanted to be the first to call it what it felt like. A warning. The next morning I found something. It was buried in a drawer, under a warped stack of faded maps and old receipts. A journal, weathered leather cover, pages yellowed and brittle. The entries were written by hand, looping script, dates going back 5 years. The name on the inside cover was Simon Keller. The first entries were mundane, notes about repairs, wildlife sightings, temperature logs, but about a third of the way through, everything changed. They came again last night. The song was clearer this time. I boarded the windows. They sang anyway. I saw them, faces pale like ash. They don't blink. They don't need to. If you're reading this, don't listen. Don't sing back. I read the last entry out loud. Elena told me to stop. Chris said we were being paranoid. But that night, we listened, and we heard them again. This time it didn't start with chanting. It started with whispers. Outside the window, just beneath the sill. Low, breathless, as if someone was crouched right there, inches from the glass. And then, tapping, gentle, fingertips against wood. One window, then another, then the door, and all at once. They started singing again. But this time, it wasn't in rhythm. It was discordant. Voices layered on top of each other. Some deep, some childlike, some so faint they sounded like static. Chris opened the curtain and screamed. I only caught a glimpse. But I saw it too. A face. White. Thin. No hair. No eyes. Just smooth skin where features should have been. It stood inches from the glass, tilting its head in that inhuman way. And its mouth, if you could call it that, was open wide. Singing. Beat drop. Breathless pace. Urgency. Running through trees. We packed in under 2 minutes. Bags barely zipped. No one spoke. Elena wouldn't stop crying. Chris had locked himself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out until we threatened to break the door. We didn't even shut the cabin door behind us, just ran. Back through the trees, down the winding road. The sound followed us, not loud, just present, like the forest was humming with it. When we reached the car, the tires were slashed, all 4, and written in the dust on the back windshield was a single word: listen. Scene shifts, ranger station radio crackling faintly in background. We hiked 7 miles to the nearest ranger outpost. When we told them what happened, they looked at each other, then at us. They didn't laugh. They didn't say we were crazy. They just asked one question. Did any of you sing back? We shook our heads, swore we hadn't. The ranger nodded slowly. That's good, he said. That's real good. He never explained what he meant, just radioed for a pickup. We never spoke of it again. But sometimes, when I drive through back roads, when I pass thick stretches of untouched forest, I turn off the radio. Because occasionally, I hear a note, just one, deep in the woods, and I hold my breath. Because if I sing back, even once, I don't think I'll ever make it home. The monitor. You don't know fear until you're responsible for something that can't protect itself. It's not dramatic. It's just the truth. Before my son was born, I thought I understood paranoia. I triple-checked locks. I avoided late-night alleys. I kept pepper spray in my bag. But none of that compares to the terror that sets in when it's your child. When you realize the world has more ways in than you thought, and not all of them knock. We bought the baby monitor on a recommendation from a friend. It wasn't the old-school walkie-talkie kind. This was state-of-the-art. Video, audio, Wi-Fi enabled, night vision, two-way talk, motion detection, sound alerts, even a temperature sensor. It came with a sleek black camera mounted in the nursery, an app for our phones. You could check in from anywhere, work, the store, even across the world. Rob installed it above the crib, clean angle, perfect view. The first week, it was great. I could check in without even leaving the couch. I could see him breathing, hear every little sigh. It made me feel safe. Until it didn't. It was around midnight. Rob was asleep beside me. The house was silent. I was lying in bed, scrolling through photos, too wired to sleep. New parent insomnia. I decided to check the monitor. The app opened like usual. Connected quickly. No errors. But the image was weird. Darker than usual. The night vision had this strange grain to it. Not just static. Movement. Like the shadows were swimming. At first I thought it was a bug on the lens. Then, just for a second, I thought I saw something move. In the corner, just outside the crib. Not fast, not dramatic, just a slow tilt of a shape. Something tall, something leaning. But by the time I blinked, it was gone. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, turned up the brightness, turned up the audio, nothing but the low hum of white noise. And breathing, not mine, not Rob's, too shallow, too steady. I ran to the nursery. When I opened the door, the hallway light spilled in. Everything was still. My son was asleep, one tiny fist against his cheek. The camera lens panned as it tracked me. The green light blinked, and I stared at it. For a moment. That's when I noticed it. The curtains. The ones I always kept drawn. They were parted, just slightly, enough to reveal the glass beneath. And on the glass, a smudge, long, vertical, like a finger, dragged slowly, top to bottom. I looked outside, nothing but darkness. The next morning, I checked the app again. There was a motion detection timeline, tiny gray marks showing activity. At 12:03 a.m., right when I saw the distortion, there was a spike. I tapped the thumbnail. The video loaded. At first it looked normal. Crib, shadows, silence. Then the camera shifted slightly, reacting to something. And in the upper corner, a hand. Not a full body, just a hand. Pale, thin, crawling slowly into view from the edge of the screen. Fingers drumming lightly on the wall, almost playfully. I slammed the phone down. I didn't want to see what came next. Rob didn't believe me, said it was a glitch, a compression error, maybe light from a car. I tried to believe him, but that night, the monitor glitched again. This time it wasn't the video. It was the audio. I heard something, not white noise, not breathing. A voice, faint, like a whisper, dragged through static. He's not yours. I stared at the screen. My son was still asleep, peaceful, unaware. But I couldn't move. I sat there for over an hour, watching, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. The voice didn't come back, but the fear stayed. 2 days later, Rob noticed something strange while updating the router. A new device, connected to the network, unnamed, unknown. But the MAC address nearly identical to the baby monitors, except it ended in 666. He thought it was a hacker, just spoofing the signal. I wasn't so sure. I changed all the passwords, reinstalled the app, factory reset the monitor, it didn't matter. That night, the camera turned itself back on. After we'd powered it down, the green light blinked, and the app, it sent a push notification to my phone. New user connected, HCZO. We unplugged the monitor, smashed the camera, but something had already shifted. Even without the device, I could feel it. At night, I'd hear tapping on the nursery wall. 3 taps, then silence. 3 more, always behind the crib. I called the company, demanded answers, asked if the monitors could be hacked, if they could be used. They denied everything, said there was no record of a second connection. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. Sound falls to a whisper, a child's giggle, distorted, faint static rising beneath the silence. Now, I sleep in the nursery. I don't leave my son alone, not even to shower, because sometimes, in the reflection of the window, I see movement behind me, and sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night to find him staring at the wall, smiling, whispering something I can't quite hear. But once, when I pressed my ear close enough, I heard him say, "He likes your voice, Mommy. He wants you to read him another story." The detour. It started with a flat tire. That's how these things always begin, isn't it? Something small, something stupid, something you could have prevented if you just stayed on the main road. Pause. But we didn't. We were in Glenwood Hollow, a place that didn't show up on Google Maps until you were already in it. One of those in-between towns. No billboards, no traffic, just a rusted sign on the side of the road. "Welcome to Glenwood Hollow. A good place to rest." We should have kept driving. We were on our way back from a weekend in the mountains. Me, Cassie, Jordan, college friends, still close, still pretending we weren't growing apart. Cassie sat passenger. Jordan was dozing in the back. We were running late, so I took a shortcut. Thin, cracked road, forest on both sides, the kind of dense where the sun has to ask permission to get through. Then, pop. Sharp, sudden, like a gunshot. Steering wheel pulled, car buckled, flat tire. We rolled to a stop, dust curling around us. I stepped out, looked, and I swear, the tire looked cut. Not popped, not worn, slashed, 2 clean slices, parallel, like knife marks. But the road, clear. No nails, no glass, no reason. Cassie noticed too. "That's not normal," she said. "Did we hit something?" Pause. No one had cell service, of course. I checked the trunk. No spare, of course. Then, we heard the engine. An old beat-up gray sedan, crawling out from the trees, not from the road, from a side path. One we hadn't seen, one that looked too narrow for a car. The sedan stopped behind us, and a man stepped out, mid-40s, boots, grease on the jeans, a mechanic's name tag, long since rubbed clean. He smiled, too easily. "You kids all right?" "Flat tire," I said. "I got tools," he said. "Can help you fix it." Cassie leaned in, whispering, "Don't let him touch the car." But what were we supposed to do? No phone, no help. Sun already dipping behind the trees. He opened his trunk, pulled out a jack, tools, started working, fast, efficient, and the whole time, he hummed. Not a tune I knew. Something slow, old, familiar in a wrong kind of way. like your grandmother's perfume in the middle of the night. He got the tire changed in under 5 minutes. Then he stood, looked at us, smiled, too wide. Takes a while for phones to work out here, dead zone. Y'all need to come by my shop, just a few miles. I'll check the rest of your tires, free of charge. We said no. He insisted. Cassie stepped forward. We're fine. Really. Thank you. He stared at her, a second too long, then nodded. All right, y'all take care now. He drove off, back into the trees, same hidden road. We sat in silence. Then Jordan. Why were there tools in his trunk before he even looked at the tire? We drove the other way, but something felt wrong. The trees, too uniform, too familiar, every curve, every bend, repeating, like we were stuck. We passed the same fallen log, twice. I slowed, pulled over. Jordan stepped out, walked into the trees, came back pale. There's no end to it, he said. The woods don't go anywhere. We turned around, headed toward the path he came from. No one argued, because we knew. It was the only option left. 10 minutes later, we found it. A garage, one bay, metal siding, half rusted, flickering sign. Miller's Auto, no cars, no lights, no open sign. Just a black crow on the roof, watching. I honked. No answer. Knocked. The garage door creaked open, just a little, enough to see inside. Dozens of tires, stacked along the wall. Each one, 2 clean knife slashes. Cassie found a back room. Office? Maybe. Dust, filing cabinets, and a wall, covered in Polaroids, dozens, hundreds. Each one, a car, broken down, on that same road. Next to the car, a person. Some smiling, some still, some not moving at all. Same background, same trees. Cassie grabbed one, then froze. This one's us, she said. What? That's our car. And that's me, standing by the door. Same angle, same clothes, same light. But the photo, old, curled at the corners, like it had been there for years. We ran, didn't get far. From behind the shop, footsteps, not one, not two, dozens. Figures stepping out of the woods wearing flannel, boots, same name tags, blank, same faces, blank, movements, unnatural, and at the front, the mechanic, still smiling, still humming. Cassie grabbed my arm. He didn't fix the tire, she said. What? He just made it ready, for them. We ran. We made it to the car, locked the doors. Jordan floored it. This time, the road changed, no more loop, trees opened, signal bars returned. Behind us, Glenwood Hollow disappeared. No exit sign, no curve, just highway, as if it had never been there. Weeks later, a letter. No return address, no postage. Inside, a photo, our car, slashed tire. Cassie leaning against the hood, Jordan drinking water, me, just out of frame. And in the corner, the mechanic, staring, smiling, holding, another photo. We never went back, but sometimes, on long drives, when the road curves too much, when the trees press in too close, I roll up the windows, because I swear, if I slow down, if I stop for even a second, he'll be there, still smiling, still humming, still holding. The next photo. The sleep clinic tape. There's a kind of fear that doesn't come with screams or shadows. It's slower, it waits, and it starts in the quiet places, the ones we only visit in sleep. That's where it began for me. In a building of white walls and gray floors, where dreams were charted, measured, studied. I was a technician at the Halcyon Sleep Institute, a privately funded clinic on the edge of town. Small, unremarkable, the kind of place people drove past every day, without noticing. But inside, something noticed us. It was simple work. Hook up patients to the machines, monitor their vitals, record any disturbances, flag anomalies. Most of the patients were insomniacs, some were night terrors. A few came in for sleepwalking, but one program stood apart, Phase 9. Only select patients were allowed into it. They never shared full details, just that it involved lucid dream research and deep-stage neural monitoring. The rooms for Phase 9 and were in the basement. No windows, soundproofed, locked from the outside. Only authorized staff were allowed to monitor those sessions, one at a time, overnight. I got tapped for it after 6 months on the job. They said I was detail-oriented. What they meant was, I didn't ask questions. My first Phase 9 patient was a 31-year-old woman named Dana Ellis. Healthy, normal background, no history of psychosis, just severe chronic nightmares. She'd been admitted for observation after reporting increasingly realistic dreams, ones where she felt watched. Not by people, not even by something with a face. It doesn't need a face, she'd said during intake. It's older than that. Her sleep study began at 9 p.m. sharp. I connected the electrodes, started the EEG, set up the infrared camera. The data stream was clean, no abnormalities in stage 1. But then, at 2:14 a.m., right after she entered REM sleep, something changed. The EEG spiked, but not in the usual way. Instead of electrical activity following a curve, it reversed. Patterns folding in on themselves, like a mirror image collapsing. Her heartbeat slowed. Her breathing stopped. But she didn't wake up. She just started moving. At first it was minor, fingers twitching, jaw clenching. But then, she sat up, eyes still closed. The heart monitor flatlined for 5 seconds, just 5, then kicked back in like nothing happened. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I checked the audio feed. There was something there, a voice, but not hers, too low, too old. And then, the camera glitched, not like static, not like loss of feed. It stuttered, paused on a single frame, and in that frame, there was something else in the room, not a person, a shape, at the foot of her bed, barely visible, like it had stepped into the lens and from someplace on behind the screen. I paused the recording, tried to scrub through frame by frame, but the file wouldn't play, so I checked the physical backup. Each Phase 9 session was saved to tape as a redundancy, and that's when I saw it. The backup played normally, until frame 2391, then black screen for 1 second, then an image, but not from the room. It looked like stone walls, carved, wet, lit by flame. And carved into those walls were faces, dozens, hundreds, all with mouths open in silent scream. The screen flickered. Then Dana reappeared, still asleep, still chanting. I shut the tape off, filed a report. But the next morning, it was gone. Not the tape, the report. My file had been wiped. The Phase 9 folder erased, as if that night had never happened. I confronted my supervisor. He just stared at me. "You're tired," he said. "Dreams bleed if you let them." I wasn't the only one. One by one, the other techs who worked Phase 9 started changing. They'd stop talking mid-sentence, start sleeping during shifts, wake up gasping, eyes wide, like they'd seen something they couldn't forget. Some of them stopped coming in entirely. The ones who stayed looked hollow, not tired, just vacant. I tried to talk to Dana, see if she remembered anything, but she'd been discharged. No record of her release, no forwarding contact, gone. I went back to the basement, broke into the server room, found a hidden directory, unlabeled, password protected, but the timestamp matched Dana's session. There was one file, a video, no metadata, no description. I opened it. The screen was black at first. Then a room appeared, stone walls again, lit by torchlight. The camera was shaky, like it was being held by someone walking, breathing hard. The path narrowed, then opened into a chamber. In the center was Dana, but not like before. Her body was there, but her face, it was blank, like it had been erased, and standing behind her was something else. Tall, skin stretched too tight, fingers too long, no mouth, no eyes, just a flat plane where a face should be. And even though the recording had no sound, I could hear it. "We watched you sleep." I ripped the headphones off. The screen froze, then burned white. The computer fried. They found me that night. The director, security. They said I'd breached protocol, said I was being sent home, but they didn't fire me. They didn't say a word about the tape, just smiled and handed me a slip of paper. It read, "Phase 10 begins next week. You've been selected." I never went back, but I don't sleep much anymore, because when I do, I find myself standing in a room made of stone, and in the walls, I see my own face, mouth open, eyes gone, screaming into the dark. Room for rent. Remember what I was looking for when I found the ad? I just remember the way it was worded. Room for rent, quiet street, good light, no pets, must be comfortable with silence. No photos, no contact name, just a number, no online listing anywhere else. It shouldn't have stood out, but something about it did. I called. A voice answered. Monotone, male. He gave me an address, didn't ask my name, didn't ask for references. He just said, "Be here by sundown. Room will be ready." It was a 2-story house near the edge of the city. Detached, plain, older than it looked. The street was silent. No children playing, no birds, no barking, just still. The front door was unlocked. Inside, smelled like wood polish and something faintly metallic, the kind of scent you don't notice until it's gone, and you realize it never should have been there in the first place. I expected a tour, a conversation, some kind of vetting, but the man, the owner, barely looked at me. His name was Marcus, late 30s, pale, eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in years. He moved slowly, deliberately, like his body didn't belong to him, and he had to think about every step. He led me upstairs. Small room, narrow bed, a desk, and a mirror, bolted to the wall. "This is yours," he said. "Bathrooms across the hall. Don't go in the basement." I asked if there was a lease. No need. He turned, walked away. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't notice the mirror at first. Old, warped glass. Everything looked like it was underwater. But after a few nights, I realized something. It didn't reflect me properly. Not entirely. Sometimes, when I moved, the reflection lagged. Sometimes, it smiled when I didn't. And once, just once, I walked past it and saw 2 reflections. Mine and something else. Something darker, standing behind me. But when I turned, there was nothing there. Things began to shift. Subtle at first. My food started tasting bland, like the flavor had been pulled out of it. My clothes always felt slightly damp. The water from the tap came out warm, even the cold side. And Marcus, he stopped talking, completely. I'd see him in the hallway, standing, still, staring at the floor. Sometimes, I'd wake up in the night to find my door slightly open, even though I'd locked it. One morning I found him, sitting on the kitchen floor, just sitting, eyes wide, mouth open, humming something under his breath. When I asked if he was okay, he whispered, "It doesn't like the silence anymore." I found it in the closet. Old notebook, leather-bound, tucked into a floorboard, dozens of pages, scribbled handwriting, no structure, no dates, just lines like, "The mirror is not a mirror." It copies first, then it remembers. Don't let it hum back. And near the end, Marcus let it in, but it wants someone new now. I stopped reading, put the notebook back. That night I dreamed of the mirror, but in the dream it wasn't glass, it was flesh, soft, breathing. And when I leaned close, it whispered, "We've been waiting." It happened on a Wednesday. I came home early from work, and there was someone else in the house. Not Marcus, a woman, late 20s, sitting at the kitchen table staring at the wall. I said hello. She didn't blink, didn't move, just said. He told me there was a room. I asked Marcus who she was. He looked at me, eyes dull. She answered the ad. There hadn't been an ad since I moved in. I checked. The post was gone. That night I heard her crying in the bathroom. Low, soft, then, suddenly, cut off. When I checked, she wasn't there. Just the mirror, fogged, with a handprint on the inside. I couldn't sleep, hadn't slept in days. So I went downstairs. The basement door was open. I didn't remember hearing it. I told myself I was just looking, just checking, making sure the smell, that metallic hum, wasn't getting worse. But when I stepped inside, I felt it. Not air, not heat, a presence. The walls were covered in mirrors, dozens, cracked, warped, different sizes, some broken, some clean, and in every one, Marcus, standing, still, facing away. But in reality, he wasn't there. The next morning, Marcus was gone. His room, empty. All the furniture, gone, like he'd never been there. But in the mirror in my room, I saw him, just standing behind me, silent, watching. And then, he smiled, even though I didn't, even though I wasn't. I tried to leave, but every time I pack a bag, the ad appears again, on my phone, on my laptop, on paper, taped to my door. Room for rent, good light, must be comfortable with silence. And every time, I hear Marcus, humming, just behind the mirror, waiting for someone new. The house on Wrenhill Lane. When we bought the house on Wrenhill Lane, it felt like a fresh start. 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch, tall grass out front that swayed like a living sea. A place where the kids could grow, where we could breathe, where nothing followed us from before. That's what we thought. The truth is, you don't move into that house. That house moves into you. The listing said it had been vacant for years. The previous owners? Out of the country. The neighbors didn't know their names, no mail, no furniture left behind. Just an empty shell. It was priced too low, of course. That should have been the first sign. But we were tired, broke, ready to settle down. The first night, I stood in the hallway listening to the kids laugh from upstairs. My wife was unpacking books in the living room. The house was quiet, peaceful, too peaceful. You ever stand in a place and feel like something's holding its breath? That was Wrenhill. There was a 4th room, one not mentioned in the listing. A small door at the end of the upstairs hall. It was locked when we moved in. The realtor had no key, no memory of it even. But one day, our son Tyler, 6 years old, came downstairs holding a set of wooden blocks. "Where did you find those?" I asked. "The toy room," he said. I followed him back upstairs. The door was open, just a crack. Inside was a room that hadn't aged. Pink wallpaper, rocking horse. Dolls arranged in a circle on the floor, dustless shelves, a chalkboard with one word written in neat cursive, "Stay." My wife closed the door. We told ourselves it was a leftover from decades ago. Tyler started spending more time in there. He gave the dolls names. "That one's Clara," he said. "She doesn't like loud noises." There was a grandfather clock in the foyer, old, heavy, unplugged, but it ticked, always. At 3:17 a.m., it chimed, not once, not 12 times, 17, every night, same time, no matter what we did. We tried moving it, breaking it, storing it in the garage. It always came back, still ticking. Our daughter Mia started drawing again. She was only 9, but always had a knack for shapes. Her sketchbook was filled with circles, faces, trees. But then, the drawings changed. Dark scribbles, figures with long arms, eyes, So many eyes. She drew our house, but it was upside down and alive. Roots crawling from the foundation like fingers. One drawing showed us the family, sleeping in our beds, but from above, like the perspective of someone watching. "Who drew this?" my wife asked. Mia just said, "The house did." I started hearing whispers at night, not voices exactly, more like breath. Sometimes from the vents, sometimes from the walls. Once I heard my name, not shouted, not spoken, just breathed, soft, wet, close. I stayed up late that night, sat in the hallway with a flashlight, and at exactly 3:17 a.m., I heard footsteps upstairs. But when I went to check on the kids, they were both standing in the hallway, eyes closed, facing the wall, humming, in perfect harmony. I found it in the attic, buried under a loose floorboard, an old leather-bound journal, entries dating back decades. The first page read, "If you found this, it's too late. It doesn't like secrets." The entries were frantic, scrawled, paranoid. One entry caught my eye. "The house has a memory. It forgets slowly. But when it remembers, it plays." Another, "It likes children best, not for what they are, for what they see." And near the end, "It took my wife first, but it wore her face for months before I noticed." The fourth room changed. I know how that sounds, but it did. The wallpaper peeled on its own. The rocking horse turned toward the door. The dolls rearranged themselves every night, always in new positions, always facing outward. And one morning, Tyler refused to come out, said Clara wouldn't let him. We broke the door down. He wasn't there. The room was empty, except for the drawing. Crayon on the wall, a stick figure labeled Tyler standing next to the house. Only the house was open, and its mouth was wide. We found the records, buried in city archives, forgotten zoning maps. Wrenhill Lane didn't always exist. The house stood alone for decades, unnumbered, originally an orphanage, then a psychiatric ward, then a church. Each time it changed. Each time something happened. Disappearances, murders, fires, all ruled accidents. But the building, the foundation, stayed. Always. One name kept repeating, Clara Ashby, a girl who disappeared in 1904, last seen standing in a playroom, smiling at someone no one else could see. We tried to leave, packed in one night, left the furniture, left the dishes in the sink, took only what we could carry. But at 3:17 a.m., just before the front door opened, the house shifted, walls stretched, rooms twisted, the fourth door slammed shut, and from behind it, we heard all three voices, Mia, Tyler, and mine, laughing. We don't live there anymore, but we didn't leave, not really. And sometimes, when I walk past mirrors, I see Wrenhill behind me, waiting. 8 stories, 8 open doors, and not one of them has truly closed. You've heard their voices, and the ones who ran, who stayed, who vanished, and who were taken. But these weren't just stories. They were echoes. And echoes don't end. They follow. They wait. And if you listened closely, really closely, then maybe you didn't leave these stories behind. Maybe they left something behind in you. Beat, silence, one distant knock. So before you turn out the lights tonight, subscribe, because the next story, it might already be watching.